Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Ever get so locked into something that you completely miss what's happening right in front of you? Picture this. You're watching a quick video of two basketball teams, one in white shirts, one in black, passing balls back and forth. Your job? Simple. Count how many times the white team passes the ball. So you're watching, really concentrating, players moving, weaving, passing. You're tracking every move. 5, 6, 7. The video ends. You're pretty sure you nailed it. Then comes the question you weren't expecting. Did you see the gorilla? Wait, what gorilla? You rewind and watch again. And there it is. Right in the middle of the action, a person in a full gorilla suit walks straight through the game, beats its chest, and casually walks off. It's on screen for 9 whole seconds. Yet if you're like about half of all people watching for the first time, you saw absolutely nothing. Your brain was so wrapped up in counting that it literally deleted a gorilla from your reality. This isn't just a fun trick to show at parties. It's a glimpse into something fascinating and slightly terrifying about how our minds actually work. It shows us that we can completely miss the obvious, and even worse, we have no idea we're missing it. Today, we're diving into one of the most mind-bending books ever written about how we think. Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel Prize-winning psychologist. This book has sold millions of copies and fundamentally rewired how we understand our own brains. Kahneman spent his entire career uncovering the hidden machinery behind every decision, every judgment, every choice we make. What he discovered is wild. Your mind isn't one unified thinker. It's more like a two-character stage play. There's a fast, instinctive, emotional character, and a slow, careful, logical one. The way these two interact shapes everything. How you live, how you love, how you spend money, even how you remember your own past. By the end of today's journey, you'll have a completely new language for understanding yourself. You'll see why you make impulsive choices you later regret, why you're so confident even when you're totally wrong, and why losing something hurts way more than winning feels good. Even better, you'll start spotting these hidden patterns not just in other people, but in yourself, which is the first real step toward making genuinely smarter decisions. So let's pull back the curtain and meet the two characters running the show inside your head. To understand these two mental characters, let's try a couple of quick experiments. First, imagine looking at a photo of a woman with dark hair, furrowed eyebrows, and her mouth open mid-shout. You don't have to think about what she's feeling. Instantly, you know. She's angry. You didn't analyze it. It just happened. You might even sense what's coming next. Harsh words, probably loud. This right here is what Kahneman calls System 1. Your fast thinking in action. Now try this. 17 times 24. Different feeling, right? You immediately recognize its multiplication. You know you could figure it out, but it's going to take actual work. The answer doesn't just pop up. If you actually sit down to solve it, you'll feel your brain straining. Your muscles tense, heart rate picks up, pupils dilate. You'd have to follow steps you learned in school, holding numbers in your head as you go. This is System 2, your slow thinking. These are our two main characters. System 1 is kind of the star of the book. It runs automatically and lightning fast, with almost no effort and zero conscious control. It's the part giving you gut feelings, instant impressions, and intuitions. It lets you understand basic sentences, drive on an empty road, or pick up hostility in someone's voice. It's constantly making sense of the world, weaving stories that connect past, present, and future. System 1 is where your gut lives. System 2, meanwhile, is the supporting actor who thinks it's the lead. This is the conscious, reasoning version of you, the part that has beliefs, makes choices, and decides what to focus on. It's the part you identify with when you say, I. When you're filling out tax forms, comparing washing machines, or checking if an argument makes logical sense, that's System 2 at work. Its operations need attention and get disrupted when you're distracted. You can't calculate 17 times 24 while making a left turn into heavy traffic. Here's the key dynamic. System 2 is lazy. Its defining trait is not wanting to work harder than absolutely necessary. Most of the time, it's coasting in low-effort mode. Meanwhile, System 1 is working around the clock, constantly feeding System 2 suggestions, impressions, intuitions, gut feelings. When things are running smoothly, System 2 just rubber stamps System 1's suggestions with barely any changes. You generally trust your impressions and act on your impulses, and honestly, that works fine most of the time. This division of labor is incredibly efficient. It saves energy and optimizes performance. The problem shows up when System 1 hits a snag or makes a mistake. System 1 has biases, predictable errors it tends to make in specific situations. It loves jumping to conclusions. It sees patterns and causes where none exist. It swaps hard questions for easy ones without telling you. And because System 2 is often lazy, it frequently lets these mistakes slide without catching them. Most of what your System 2 thinks and does actually starts in System 1, but System 2 is supposed to be in charge. It should take over when things get tricky and have the final say. The rest of this book, and our journey today, is about what happens when this partnership breaks down and how that affects pretty much everything we do. Let's start with one of System 1's most impressive and sometimes most dangerous abilities, making connections. Look at these two words. Bananas. Vomit. In the last couple seconds, a lot just happened in your brain. You probably got hit with some unpleasant images and memories. Maybe even a little physical reaction, a flicker of disgust. This happened automatically. You didn't choose it, and you couldn't stop it. But something else happened too. Your mind automatically created a story. It assumed bananas caused the sickness. You formed a mini scenario in your head. As a result, you might even feel a temporary, mild aversion to bananas right now. This is what Kahneman calls the associative machine at work. Your brain is a massive web of connected ideas, and when one lights up, it triggers a whole cascade of others. The word vomit doesn't just call up its dictionary definition. It activates memories, emotions, even physical sensations. It primes you for related ideas like sick, stink, or nausea. This process runs silently in the background. We're not aware it's happening, but it massively influences how we see the world. This hidden network of associations leads to a powerful phenomenon called priming. Imagine you just saw the word EAT. Now, if I show you the word fragment SO_P, you're way more likely to complete it as soup than soap. But if you'd just seen the word wash, the opposite would happen. The idea of EAT primed you for soup. Seems trivial, right? But priming effects can be absolutely wild. In one famous experiment, young university students assembled sentences from word lists. For one group, the words were all related to being old: Florida, forgetful, wrinkle, gray. After finishing, they were told the experiment was over and sent to another office down the hall. But the walk down the hall was the actual experiment. Researchers secretly timed how long it took them to walk. The result was mind-blowing. The young people primed with old age words walked significantly slower than those who weren't. The concept of old had been activated in their minds and triggered the associated behavior of slow walking. This is called the ideomotor effect. When asked about it later, None of them had any clue the words had influenced them. Zero awareness. This works in reverse too. If you're asked to walk slowly, you become quicker to recognize words related to old age. If you're made to smile, say by holding a pencil in your teeth, you'll find cartoons funnier. Made to frown, you'll react more strongly to upsetting pictures. Your mind, body, and emotions are all intricately woven together in this web of associations, and these subtle influences shape major decisions. In one voting study, researchers found people were more likely to vote for increased school funding if their polling station was located in a school. The environment itself primed them to be more education-friendly. These discoveries can feel unsettling. They challenge our self-image as conscious, independent decision-makers. If a polling location or a few words in a sentence can change our behavior without us knowing, how much control do we really have? The answer: less than we think. Priming happens in System 1, completely outside our conscious awareness. Your subjective experience is mostly just the story your System 2 tells itself about what's going on. But the real driver behind many of your actions is the silent, associative machine of System 1. This brings us to another core. System 1 function. It constantly maintains a model of your world and knows what's normal. A dog barking? Normal. A cat barking? Definitely not. This ability to spot violations of normality is shockingly fast and subtle. It's what lets us communicate. If I say, "The large mouse climbed over the trunk of the very small elephant," you instantly picture a shoe-sized mouse and a sofa-sized elephant. You don't imagine a car-sized mouse. Your System 1 has built-in norms for categories. It knows the plausible range of sizes for mice and elephants. This love for normality and coherence leads System 1 to its most common and consequential mistake: jumping to conclusions. Consider an ambiguous shape. In the context of letters, you read it as pini, B. In the context of numbers, you read it as 13. Context resolved the ambiguity, and you probably didn't even notice there was an ambiguity to resolve. System 1 hates doubt. It doesn't keep track of alternatives it rejects. It quickly settles on the most coherent story and presents it to your consciousness as fact. Doubt and uncertainty? That's System 2's territory. This tendency gets amplified by another System 1 quirk. What you see is all there is. Kahneman shorthand. WISIATI. System 1 is radically insensitive to both the quality and quantity of information creating your impressions. It works with whatever's available and builds the most coherent story it can. Think about this. Will Mindic be a good leader? She is intelligent and strong. An answer probably popped into your head. Yes. You jumped there based on super limited information. You didn't stop to ask, what else do I need to know? What if the next two words were corrupt and cruel? WISIATI is why we can think fast and make sense of a complex world with incomplete information. But it also makes us wildly overconfident. The confidence we have in our beliefs depends mostly on the quality of the story we can tell about what we see, even if we're seeing very little. Paradoxically, it's actually easier to build a coherent story when you know less, when there are fewer pieces to fit together. Our comfortable belief that the world makes sense rests on a shaky foundation, our almost unlimited ability to ignore what we don't know. This tendency to create simple, tidy stories leads to one of the mind's most powerful biases, the halo effect. If you like someone's politics, You probably like their voice and appearance too. It's the tendency to like or dislike everything about a person, including things you haven't even observed. In a classic experiment, Solomon Asch showed people descriptions of two individuals and asked for personality assessments. Alan: intelligent, industrious, impulsive, critical, stubborn, envious. Ben: envious, stubborn, critical, impulsive, industrious, intelligent. Most people viewed Alan way more favorably than Ben. The initial traits change how you interpret the later ones. An intelligent person's stubbornness seems justified. An envious person's intelligence makes them seem dangerous. System 1 creates a story and wants it to be consistent. It smooths out reality's rough edges. This love for simple, coherent stories is also behind the narrative fallacy. We constantly fool ourselves by building flimsy explanations of the past and believing they're true. Take Google's story. Two creative grad students invent a better search engine, make brilliant decisions, become billionaires. Compelling story. Makes you feel like you understand the secret to success. But the real test of an explanation is whether it could have predicted the outcome beforehand. And no Google story can do that, because no story includes the thousands of lucky breaks and countless events that could have changed everything. For example, a year after founding Google, the founders were willing to sell for under $1 million, but the buyers said it cost too much. That one lucky break changed everything. The real story is a messy mix of skill and luck. But our minds tell us a clean, tidy tale of genius. This creates a powerful hindsight bias. After something happens, we immediately adjust our worldview to fit the surprise. We feel like we knew it all along. The 2008 financial crisis seems inevitable looking back. At the time, almost nobody saw it coming. The illusion that we understand the past breeds overconfidence in predicting the future. So System 1 jumps to conclusions based on thin evidence, creating simple, coherent, and often wrong stories. What's System 2 doing while all this happens? Often, not much. It's supposed to monitor and catch errors, but it's lazy. To see just how lazy, try this simple puzzle. Don't solve it, just listen to your gut. A bat and ball cost $1.10 total. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? A number jumped into your head. Obviously, it's 10 cents. This puzzle is remarkable because it triggers an answer that's intuitive, appealing, and completely wrong. If the ball costs 10 cents and the bat costs $1 more, the bat would be $1.10. Total would be $1.20, not $1.10. The correct answer is 5 cents. The bat costs $1.05, which is $1 more than 5 cents, totaling $1.10. What's shocking isn't that people get this wrong, it's who gets it wrong. Over 50% of students at Harvard, MIT, and Princeton gave the wrong intuitive answer. At less selective schools, over 80%. This little puzzle tests your system too. Anyone who said 10 cents didn't actively check if their answer was right. Their system too rubber-stamped an intuitive answer it could have rejected with minimal effort. This is a recurring theme. Many people are overconfident, placing too much faith in their intuitions. They find mental effort at least mildly unpleasant and avoid it whenever possible. This brings us to a central concept: heuristics or mental shortcuts. System 1 often answers a hard question by substituting an easier one. Imagine you're asked, how much would you donate to save an endangered species? That's tough. It requires complex value calculations. Your System 1 is likely to answer an easier question instead. How much emotion do I feel thinking about dying dolphins? The intensity of your emotion gets translated into dollars. Or, if you're asked, how happy are you with your life? That's hard. But if someone just asked, how many dates did you have last month? The emotion from that question lingers. Your mind substitutes the easier question, how happy am I with my love life, for the hard one about life overall. In one study, the correlation between dating frequency and happiness was 0 when the happiness question came first, but incredibly high when the dating question came first. The first answer determined the second. This substitution process explains some of the most famous biases Kahneman and his collaborator Amos Tversky discovered. One is the representativeness heuristic. We judge probability by similarity, how much something matches a stereotype. Meet Tom W. He's a grad student described as, he needs order and clarity, neat and tidy systems. His writing is rather dull and mechanical. He has a passion for detail. Is Tom more likely studying computer science or humanities and education? Most people say computer science. The description perfectly fits the stereotype, but this ignores crucial information. Base rates. There are far more grad students in humanities and education than computer science. Statistically, Tom's much more likely in humanities, even if his personality doesn't seem to fit. But System 1 latches onto the representative story and ignores the bland statistics. The most famous example is the Linda problem. Linda is 31, single, outspoken, and very bright. She majored in philosophy. As a student, she was deeply concerned with discrimination and social justice, and participated in anti-nuclear demonstrations. Which is more probable? 1. Linda is a bank teller. 2. Linda is a bank teller and active in the feminist movement. Over 85% choose option 2, but this is logically impossible. The set of feminist bank tellers is a subset of all bank tellers. Every feminist bank teller is a bank teller. Therefore, option 2 cannot be more probable than option 1. This is the conjunction fallacy. We commit it because option 2 is more representative of Linda's description. It creates a more coherent, plausible story. System 1 confuses plausibility with probability. The story wins, logic loses. Even when shown the logic, the fallacy remains attractive. That little voice keeps saying, but she can't just be a bank teller. Read the description. Another powerful shortcut is the availability heuristic. We estimate frequency by how easily examples come to mind. If I ask whether more English words start with K or have K as the third letter, you'll almost certainly say start with K. Why? Because it's way easier to think of words starting with K, kitchen, kite, kangaroo, than words with K third, ask, bake, acknowledge. In reality, there are more than twice as many words with K third. But ease of retrieval drives our judgment. This is why we exaggerate risks of dramatic events. Shark attacks and plane crashes get massive media coverage. They come to mind easily, so we think they're more common than they are. Meanwhile, deaths from diabetes or stomach cancer are far more common but get less coverage, so we underestimate them. Our risk estimates aren't based on statistics. They're based on stories and images easily available to our minds. This is why terrorism is so effective. It's not about casualty numbers. It's about the vivid, frightening image planted in collective memory. It creates an availability cascade, where media coverage catches public attention, leading to more coverage, more worry, and so on, until a minor threat explodes into full-blown panic. Now let's turn to how these systems make decisions, especially involving risk. This is where Kahneman made his most revolutionary contribution, earning him the Nobel Prize prospect theory. For centuries, the dominant decision-making theory was simple. People choose the option with highest expected value. A 50% chance to win $100 has an expected value of $50. But this theory is obviously wrong. Most people prefer a guaranteed $46 over a coin flip for $100. They're risk-averse. Daniel Bernoulli refined this in the 18th century. He proposed people don't think in dollar values, but in psychological value, or utility, of outcomes. He suggested we experience diminishing marginal utility. The difference between $10 and $20 feels much bigger than between $110 and $120. This explains risk aversion. The subjective value of that extra $10 shrinks when you already have more money. Bernoulli's theory improved things but had a massive flaw. Theory induced blindness lasting over 250 years. His theory assumes what matters is your final wealth state. Consider Jack and Jill. They each have $5 million today. Are they equally happy? Bernoulli says yes. But what if yesterday Jack had $1 million and Jill had $9 million? Now you know the truth. Jack's elated, Jill's devastated. Their happiness isn't determined by wealth state, but by change in wealth, evaluated relative to a reference point. This was prospect theory's first key insight. We don't experience life in absolute terms. We experience it as gains and losses, improvements and setbacks, relative to where we started. The second insight is loss aversion. Consider this coin flip gamble. Tails, you lose $100. Heads, you win $150. Would you take it? The expected value is positive. You stand to gain more than lose. But if you're like most people, you refused. Why? Because, psychologically, losing $100 hurts more intensely than winning $150 feels good. For most people, losses loom about twice as large as gains. You'd need a potential gain of about $200 to offset the risk of losing $100. Loss aversion is a powerful conservative force in our lives. It makes us reluctant to change because the disadvantages of change loom larger than advantages. This explains the endowment effect. Once we own something, giving it up feels like a loss, so we value it more than we would have before owning it. In a famous experiment, people given a coffee mug were asked the lowest price they'd sell it for. Another group without mugs was asked the highest price they'd pay. Sellers, average price was about double buyers. Giving up the mug felt like a loss, and that hurt. Prospect theory's third key insight combines the first two. There's a graph which would be on the theory's flag if it had one, showing we have diminishing sensitivity to both gains and losses. The difference between gaining $100 and $200 feels bigger than between $1, $100 and $1, $200. Same with losses. This S-shaped curve, steeper on the loss side, leads to a fascinating, predictable pattern Kahneman calls the fourfold pattern. 1. Facing high probability of large gain, we become risk-averse. A 95% chance to win $10,000? Most prefer a guaranteed $9,000 to lock it in. Fear of disappointment is powerful. 2. Facing low probability of large gain, we become risk-seeking. This is the lottery ticket. A 1% chance to win $1 million is a long shot, but hope of a big win makes us willing to gamble. 3. Facing high probability of large loss, we become risk-seeking. A 95% chance to lose $10,000? Many would rather gamble on a 5% chance of losing nothing. even risking losing everything. The sure loss is too painful to accept, and hope of avoiding it is very attractive. This is where people take desperate gambles. 4. Facing low probability of large loss, we become risk-averse. This is insurance. We'll pay a premium, more than the expected value, to eliminate a small chance of catastrophic loss. Fear of large loss is highly motivating. This fourfold pattern explains a huge range of human behaviors, from buying lottery tickets to buying insurance, and why failing businesses sometimes take wild, reckless risks. Finally, Kahneman introduces one last mind-bending concept: the two selves. Just as we have two thinking systems, we seem to have two selves experiencing life. There's the experiencing self and the remembering self. The experiencing self lives in the present. It answers, "Does it hurt now?" The remembering self keeps score, maintains your life story. It answers, "How was it, overall?" Here's the crucial discovery: these two selves don't always agree, and the remembering self usually gets the final say. In one famous, rather unpleasant experiment, colonoscopy patients reported pain levels every 60 seconds. Patient A had a relatively short procedure, but pain was high right at the end. Patient B had a much longer procedure with more total pain, but pain gradually subsided at the end. Which patient suffered more? Objectively, patient B. His pain lasted longer. But which had a worse memory? Patient A. When the remembering self evaluates an experience, it doesn't care much about duration. It focuses on two things: the peak intensity moment, good or bad, and how it felt at the very end. This is the peak end rule. Total length is almost completely ignored, duration neglect. To prove this, Kahneman ran an even more devilish experiment. People held their hand in painfully cold water for 60 seconds. Then, with the other hand, they did it again for 90 seconds. But in the longer trial, during the last 30 seconds, water warmed by just 1 degree. Still painfully cold, but slightly less so. Later, they chose which experience they'd prefer to repeat. A stunning 80% chose the longer one. This is direct conflict between the two selves. The experiencing self clearly suffered more in the 90-second trial. But the remembering self had a better memory, because it ended slightly less painfully. And the remembering self makes the choice. This is what Kahneman calls the tyranny of the remembering self. This has profound implications for thinking about our lives. We don't choose between experiences. We choose between memories of experiences. And memories can be wrong. When thinking about our lives, we don't sum all moments of joy and pain. We think of life as a story. Stories are defined by significant events and memorable moments, not time passing. The ending often defines the whole story's character. A wonderful 2-week vacation, ending with a miserable rainy day and delayed flight, might be remembered as a bad vacation. The bad ending can ruin the whole experience, even though it can't retroactively change the good parts that already happened. It just ruins the memory. This leads to the final, perhaps most important idea: the focusing illusion. Described in one sentence: nothing in life is as important as you think it is when you're thinking about it. When asked, "How happy are you?" your mind doesn't conduct a thorough life review. It substitutes an easier question. It latches onto whatever aspect you happen to be thinking about right then. Thinking about your recent marriage? You'll feel happy. Thinking about your stressful job? Less so. In one study, students were asked, "Are Californians happier than others?" and "Are you happy?" Students in California and the Midwest both believed Californians were happier. In reality, there was no difference in life satisfaction between groups. When people thought about California, they focused on climate, an obvious, attractive feature. But people actually living in California don't spend their days thinking about weather. They spend days working, commuting, dealing with the same daily joys and frustrations as everyone else. The focusing illusion is the source of miswanting, bad choices arising from errors in forecasting future feelings. We think a new car will make us happy long term. It will, but only when thinking about it. Most of the time while driving, we'll be thinking about other things. Novelty wears off, attention moves on. In the end, Kahneman's work is a profound call for humility. It shows the confidence we have in our beliefs and choices isn't a reliable guide to their validity. Our mind is a wonderful machine, capable of incredible intuition and creativity. But it's also full of biases and illusions. The great hope is that by learning the language of these errors, by understanding the two characters in our minds, we can start recognizing situations where we're most likely to mess up. We can learn to slow down, question intuitions, and seek information we're most likely to ignore. We may not become perfectly rational beings, but we can become more thoughtful, more deliberate, and ultimately wiser humans. As we wrap up our exploration of thinking fast and slow, it's worth pausing to let the sheer scope of this book sink in. This isn't just a collection of cool psychological quirks. It's a fundamental rethinking of human rationality itself. Daniel Kahneman gives us a whole new vocabulary for talking about the most intimate process we know, thinking. The book's most powerful lesson for me isn't that we're irrational. It's that we're predictably irrational. Our mistakes aren't random. They're systematic. They come from the very design of our mental machinery, a design that's brilliant in many ways but has inherent flaws and trade-offs. System 1 is an efficiency marvel. It lets us navigate complex worlds with incredible speed. Without it, we'd be paralyzed trying to analyze every detail of every situation. But this efficiency comes at a cost. Reliance on shortcuts and rules of thumb that, while often useful, can lead us astray in a world more complex and statistical than our hunter-gatherer brains evolved for. And System 2, our supposed guardian of reason, is often too lazy or too busy to double-check System 1's work. Why does this matter so much today? Because we live in a world practically designed to exploit System 1's weaknesses. Advertisers use cognitive ease and priming to make products feel familiar and trustworthy. Political pundits and social media algorithms feed our confirmation bias, creating echo chambers where existing beliefs constantly get reinforced. Financial news creates compelling narratives explaining random market fluctuations, feeding our illusion of understanding. In this environment, recognizing our own cognitive biases isn't just an intellectual exercise. It's a critical survival tool. So what can we do? How do we apply these profound lessons? The book doesn't offer a simple 5-step plan because there isn't one. We can't just decide to eliminate our biases. As Kahneman himself admits, even after decades studying these phenomena, he's still prone to them. But what we can do is cultivate intellectual humility and willingness to be more deliberate when it truly matters. Here are a few practical actions you can start today. First, learn to recognize signs of a cognitive minefield. When making a big decision, one with long-term consequences, high stakes, or major uncertainty, that's a signal to slow down. Don't trust your gut. Your gut is System 1, and while it's great at many things, complex long-term decisions aren't one of them. Second, when making plans, whether for a business project or home renovation, actively seek the outside view. We're all prone to the planning fallacy. We naturally take the inside view, focusing on our unique circumstances and imagining best-case scenarios. Force yourself to find statistics of similar cases. What happened to others who tried what you're doing? It may not be comforting, but it's a reality dose that can save you from failure and frustration. Third, when evaluating choices, practice framing and reframing. If a financial advisor presents an investment with a 90% success chance, ask yourself, how would I feel if it had a 10% failure chance? If you're agonizing over selling a stock at a loss, ask, if I had cash instead of this stock, would I buy it today? Changing the frame often breaks loss aversion's emotional grip and lets your logical system too have a say. Ultimately, this book isn't a manual for becoming a perfect thinking machine. It's an invitation to be more curious, more thoughtful, and more forgiving of our mental quirks and those of others. It reminds us our experience of the world isn't a direct reflection of reality, but a story our mind constructs, shaped by emotion, memory, and invisible biases. By understanding how that story gets written, we gain power to question it, edit it, and in the moments that matter most, write a better one. That was a summary of Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. We've hit the highlights today, but I'll be honest, a summary can only take you so far. The real magic happens when you read the book yourself. It's in those quiet moments when a particular story or simple phrase hits you in unexpected ways. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book's worth your time. If anything we've talked about today resonated with you, grab a copy, because reading it isn't just learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change how you see yourself and your daily life. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please subscribe so you don't miss our next journey into another life-changing book. Let's keep growing together.